And we're live, and my thing is saying that my Wi-Fi is unstable, and I straight up have it connected to I have it connected to Ethernet cable. Why is my connection unstable? Why are we struggling? Maybe my bandwidth. Maybe. I don't know. But hopefully it doesn't affect too much. But yeah, let's get into this. Let's get into it before it gets any later. Because should have gone live 20 minutes ago, but I was busy watching. I was busy, quote unquote busy. No, I started watching The Wheel of Time, the latest episode. Hello Erin, hello Darcy. How does the stream look? How do I sound? Is everything good? I hope so. It sounds super quiet because usually I have both fans going, but recently I felt a little bit under the weather. So if you hear some, that my bad, because getting over a weird cold, like a pseudo cold, like it's a wannabe cold. But anyways, you look great. Thank you, Darcy. Thank you. So yeah, my throat was like really sore last night, but it's doing that much better. But it still feels like it wants to get sore again. But yeah, okay. Thank you, Aaron. Seems good. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, so I have a Halls, a Ricola. Not a Ricola. Is it a Ricola? No, it's the Vicks Vapocool, one of those. Yeah, I have the same weird sickness. Yeah, it's like, don't be COVID. I legit almost thought it was going to be valley fever again. I got like super scared. But thankfully, like I got a blood test, and I think tomorrow, or if not Tuesday, I'm going to be able to call and check up on the results on that to make sure it's not. But I don't think it is. It was just a weird, like my lungs felt weird. But anyways, I was like, hopefully it's not. Hopefully it's not. Omicron. I don't know what. Delta, Theta, Omicron, Omega. Hopefully not, but my nose is a little drippy. I should have a box of tissues next to me, but as always, I tested not COVID. I should have gotten tested. Very irresponsible of me, but honestly, I barely go out. I barely like make myself exposed. Like I no. There's really no like big like things like, oh, of course I shouldn't have gone to that concert the other day. No, I don't do that. So yeah. Vicks Vapor Rub Panacea. What's that? Now in candy form. Yeah, it's like a Vapocool. They taste, I will say, I'd rather have a Ricola or a Halls, but it gets the job done. I should pop this right now, because it's going to be a lot of talking. We got a lot of things to talk about here in this new live stream. The topic of today's live stream. I go nowhere too, but yeah, it's like I don't go anywhere. Like it's either here or straight to my sister's house. But who knows? I think I got it from my nephew and my niece. They recently got like a sinus infection going on. And I also think it's like the cold, dry air here. Very weird. Hello, Maria. So yeah, I think we have a good little group of people here. I really want to get this over. Get before we move on, though. I mentioned Wheel of Time. I kind of want to rant a bit. I don't know who here is watching Wheel of Time on Amazon. I'm like, I literally read the book just so I could watch this. It's there's some things that I have issue with that I'm like with like I don't know, something with like a show storytelling type of thing itself. But I don't know. Should I talk about that, or should we get into the title? Not me. A little group to fight? What's that? No, so no one's watching real time. I'll save it for another live stream then. Because I don't want to like overbear. I don't want to detract and make this longer than I should. I should stay focused. But I will say to keep it simple and brief, there's a weird editing thing. It's Netflix does it, and now I'm assuming Amazon is doing it. And it's a weird, like, something was cut. Like, you can tell something was cut out, like, several times. Like, we thought, like, we literally started the episode and we're like, wait a second, shouldn't this character be with them right now? I thought they all left. Oh, no, they didn't. And then I'm pretty sure we just forgot something in the previous episode. And then we saw another scene where we're like, oh, that was totally, like, not shown, but, like, would have helped to kind of see. But anyways, we'll see how the season progresses. So far it's becoming very interesting. But, and you know, we'll another day. Let's talk about the main subject of today, though, which is, what did I title this? I titled this very weirdly. I feel like I shouldn't have titled this live stream what it is. Let me see. What are the foundations of the tarot meanings? And it's really more like, what makes a tarot? I should have called this what makes a tarot card, or what makes a tarot, you know? We kind of touched on this, and I just dropped a bunch of cards while shuffling because that's just how things go. So I feel like I've touched on the topic of, like, what makes a tarot deck. But I feel like, oh, sorry, my hair just straight up. Come on, card. There we go. My hair just straight up hit the mic. That probably sounded terrible for people. But there's this the topic of, you know, what makes a tarot card, what doesn't make a tarot card, you know, or what versus like an oracle deck or something else. We've kind of been going into that, you know. You won't like my answer to that. Well, here's some things that I kind of like gone to. I'm like, let's go to like the foundations, the things itself that make up what it is, and what modify or like create what we know of as the tarot itself. I was really thinking about this recently. What was it? What prompted it? I don't know. Recently, with my re-examination of the Rider-Waite-Smith and the like how it's had like a chokehold on the tarot world and how people learn tarot. And so I got to pull this out. I should have this deck ready. I should have a few of them ready. But I'm like, okay, well, I kind of like, we have to examine like the anatomy of something before we can call it what it is, you know, call what something is what it is, you know. And so it's sort of like, you know, you can't call a mammal an insect because, you know, one has an exoskeleton, another doesn't, and one has fur, one can fly, but there are exceptions to the rules, like a bat can fly and there's flying squirrels and all that. But I'm like, okay, well, let's look at the anatomy of a tarot card then. What makes a tarot card a tarot card? And I'm like, well, if we're looking at the Visconti Sforza, I think one of the first things that comes to mind is the image, you know? And so I'm like, okay, an image. I think that's very key to what makes a tarot card, because we're not walking around with just blank cards. And I always thought it was weird reading this book here. I found it weird, and I still need a little bit more of an exploration into how people read this way. In Advanced Tarot, an in-depth guide to practical and intuitive tarot readings by Paul Fenton Smith. I like the book so far, but there's this part where he says that there's an exercise where the readers to to build the psychic, how one would psychically or intuitively read the cards is they would lay out the cards face down and just read the backs of the cards. They would just read, they just read this, and they'd look into that and like try and get a message out of that, which I'm like, at that point, what's the point of the cards being there? It's like, no. And this is where it's like image is key to reading the cards because you're reading the image. And let's keep it focused on major arcana, the major arcana, the trumps, the ones that do have scenes on them, the ones that do have pictures on them. That's part of it. Rider-Waite-Smith are the go-to in the U.S. and English-speaking countries. They're still the new kid in school, very, very much so. Yeah. So I'm like, which is why I'm like showing the Visconti Sforza and I'm showing like this because. Again, although I'm saying like, oh, the image, it's like, you also still have this, it's still an image. It's an image of 6 coins. You have the image. It's an image. You have a drawing of some sort, Yeah, it's a force of habit of mostly just mainly learning from, based on Golden Dawn and reading Golden Dawn and all that stuff, the Golden Dawn take on the tarot. Okay, so, but point is that image, and image is one of the major keys, and that's the first thing that people see. You have the image, and you have, here I have, let me get a major, a pip card. And a court card. They all have an image in the shape or form. Some people that I'm pretty sure are like Rider-Waite-Smith pure on the way won't call this an image, but I'm like, it's still an image. Like it's still something there. I wish I had a blank card. Well, here we go. Here's another one. Here's the Heindel Tarot, which it comes with. It's with blank cards. I'm like, I should have. It's like, what's the difference between, So obviously an image is kind of key, which I guess a blank card could be something there, which we're going to get into. I think I just thought of this right now, the no image card, but we'll get into it. I'll get into it. So image, that's the major thing. That's the thing that a lot of, that come from it. They have meanings. I'm going to hold off on that because they do have meaning. We do put meaning on these images, but I think the meaning can also be altered based on 2 other things. Okay. Well, 3 other things. And I think what you're musing about step away from Rider-Waite-Smith is totally legit in case my comments come off as rude. Oh, no, it's all right. It's all right. It's all right. No, not at all rude. Not at all. It's discourse. Okay, so the image pretty big there. Oh, my dad's probably doing something. I'm like, why is my dog barking? Okay, now here is where the Visconti Sforza is kind of interesting because the next 2 parts that make up the tarot card, let's see, maybe scenic versus images, because like you said, these are images, illustrations. Yeah, I need to clarify that there is a clarification with there's scenes, there's things happening in the Rider-Waite-Smith at least, or even like in decks that are derivative of the Rider-Waite-Smith or are based on this scenic tarot. We're getting a little bit off topic here on that though. On this here, that's a little bit going off track. I'm trying to stick to the foundations here, the core things here that make up the tarot. So there are 2 things that aren't blatantly labeled on, again, going back to our Visconti Sforza. If they are, I'm not sure where they got them or not. So the next thing is the title and the number. Those are the 2 next parts that make up that. So let's look at the Noble here. Okay. Going back to like, here's what they had and this is what they always had. And I think this is where we kind of get, what makes a tarot the tarot. So here we have, should I stick to the Magician? Nah, you know, because the Death card is you know, there's a thing there with the Death card. Let's look at the High Priestess then. You know, so here's the Noble, Marseille, typical. So you see already here, they have a number at the top and a title at the bottom. So of course you can have the High Priestess, you know, or the Papesse, la Papesse, you know. Here, you want to go outside? Here. Oh, hello, Benabel. How much of the live streams did I miss? I've only been on for 15 minutes. So yeah, so moving on. Where were we? Right. Okay. You didn't miss much. You didn't miss much, Benabel. So yeah, let's see. So people won't come for you for saying these are images. I mean, like, they're images. They're images. It's an image. It's an icon. It's an image. That's why I didn't say a scene. You can't, you know. That's why I didn't say, you know, it's, you know, that's what I'm saying. It's an image. This is still an image. You know, they're just non-scenic, but yeah. Let's see. Maria asks, what do you recommend instead of using Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot? If we would want to step away, I never connected with the Rider-Waite-Smith that much, but it's what everyone uses. I'm like, I always, girl, Marielle. that's my go-to, you know, Marielle Tarot. There are some Rider-Waite-Smith-ish stuff going on here, but it really does. This is what I learned off of, and it really helped. And I'm grateful that I learned on this, because I'm pretty sure, because it helped me be more flexible to be able to weave through the Rider-Waite-Smith and the Thoth and even the Marseille. But I mostly just read, you know, I rarely read the Marseille though. But yeah, it really helped me be more flexible. So Marielle, although it is very deep, I would also say maybe Blood Moon Tarot might be good for that. If you want to go, I mean, I'm going for the out there, but yeah. Yeah, right here. Yep, even a single dot on a blank page is an image, but go figure. Yeah. And so I started like looking at videos discussing like art imagery and all that. And so I don't know whether I should go into this topic here, into which one I should go into first, either the number or the title. I think we'll talk about the number first. I think the number is very straightforward and very like, it is what it is. It determines two things. No, three, I guess. This is where we kind of get a little bit like, So aside from numerology, let's strip away like the number 2. It means that, no. Let's keep that away for a minute before we get into that. Let's see. Have to watch and listen as I could. Hello, Stephen. Yeah. Hello, everyone that's coming in. Yeah. I recently got the Marielle. I have been enjoying it. Yes, it's a really good deck. Yeah. But there's a few other ones, but yeah. Have you ever tried the Baraja Española? I have a deck. I have a deck of that, but I haven't really tried to read with it. I never tried it, but the first reading I ever got was using that. Oh, yeah. I mean, I would assume so. It's like playing cards, yeah, but it's, you know, different suit icons. But we're getting off topic here. Numbers. It denotes like mainly two things: a value and an order. So when you put a number on something, it means that, you know, Magician is number 1, so it comes first, and then the High Priestess, and so on and so forth. We have this order that we put into it. It also has a value if you want to go that way. But when you put value, that also kind of instills a hierarchy, which kind of gets a little bit, you know, we can get a little weird there, a little bit off, because again, the tarot really is about subverting hierarchies and realizing like, well, the hierarchy can go either way, whether number 1 is the biggest number or 21 is the biggest number or 78 is the biggest number, depending on what deck you use. But again, number adds to that order, and people have kind of like, you know, tried to like looking into the order of things. like I'm remembering what Helen Farley writes on the Chariot, because the Chariot is a bigger number than the Hierophant. And so the Hierophant is like the Pope. It's the the Pope. And the Chariot is this vehicle, this vehicle that move, this mobile vehicle, if I can find it. And this is really where we start to see, like, oh, there are higher forces here. There are symbols that represent higher forces above. Oh, that was weird. I swallowed weird. I swallowed saliva and I swallowed air at the same time. Gross. Anyways, so so it represents. Helen Farley notes that it possibly was an allegory for the church itself. Not the building, but like the community of the church, the people who are a follower of the faith, the group of people, the masses, and even including the Hierophant, including the Pope, including the nuns and all the priests and all that, following as a whole. So yeah, is one the podium, or is it we're getting way too far with that. We're getting into the numerology aspect of that. So let's step away from that. We're not going too deep into that. Like I said, we're just looking at the basics here, okay? Because when you look at the basics, this is when you can play with the foundations and you can play with the meanings of the cards. So when you switch up the numbers, a lot of people mainly think of the most commonly known Strength and Justice, 8 and 11. People always like think of that and like look at how that kind of changes. But it's like when you look at like the 1500s Ferrara, I believe, tarot, those Justice isn't even in either of those positions. Justice is put at the very end. It's put at 21 because as one of the virtues, it was in those creators viewed justice as the highest virtue, and all the other ones were put like in different orders. Like Temperance was even numbered. I think Temperance was actually 8, or maybe I could be wrong. I need to double check that. But point is, those Ferrara decks from the 1500s, very, very different in its numberings, and that alters how one would view those trump cards. Okay, so that's one part, and then we also have, like, even today, the only other person that I think has messed with the numbering of the major arcana is Ocean Dry from Prism & Co. Colin. He has created the Ocean Dry, and that shows a really dramatic shift and switcheroo of all the numbers of the cards on that. Then you got that. Let's not go into the Minchiati, but yeah, and then no, because then the Minchiati also has even more beyond the 22 trump cards. Well, and here's the thing: the Fool, was it considered a trump card? I don't think it was. Maybe it was. The Fool. This is where we're going to get into it. So the Fool, although we give it the number 0, and sometimes our brains kind of want to think of the number 0 as less than 1, but that's not necessarily the case. It has no value. So it's not even less than 1, but it's not more than 1 either. And it's not less than 3 or more than 4. It doesn't have any value at all. So it's not that because when you say less than 1, that already gives it a value. So the Fool can weave throughout the entire order. You can place it wherever. And even though, yeah, you'll see an actual card between, like, say, like, the Emperor and the Hierophant, it still doesn't alter the numerical value ordering thing, if that makes sense. You see where I'm getting at? Because nothing's technically there numerically, so the Fool being numberless. Okay, so yeah, I think that's it. I think that's it that we've got on the numbers that I wanted to say. I think so the next big piece that I think is significant to what makes a tarot the tarot, and this isn't to say, like, this isn't the tarot, because it doesn't, because these don't have numbers, and these don't have what we're gonna also talk about right now, which is titles. There's no actual written labeled titles on here that I can think of, like that I have heard, like, you know, from what I see, like there's no like Le Bateleur or something. What would it be called? I can't remember. You know, the juggler, or the you know, and here it's not what is it, Le Mat or something, El Mato, I can't remember. I can't remember what the Italian would have called it at the moment. The Noble has it. You know, here we have the High Priestess, La Papesse. You know, Bagato, thank you. And here, this is interesting because it kind of goes to show that, like, okay, if this is the oldest of them, I have to check other ones to see if this is the oldest Marseille. It also, that has its number and also its title, La Mort. But if you look, usually, like nowadays, the Marseille tradition is to not call it that, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure if this one does this or not. So let me go through here. And this isn't anything like groundbreaking or whatever, but it's just like, you know, expelling and, you know, putting everything on the wall and showing, like, you know, what makes the tarot, you know, what makes a tarot card a tarot card. And so here, death is unlabeled. It is untitled. It has no name. It is the nameless, you know. And there's a lot that you can go into that, you know. And this is why I'm saying, like, oh, an extra card that is imageless, that may have a number and maybe have a title but no image on it. What would you call that? You know, what would the title be, and what would its value be? Because, you know, it can't be number 0, or it can't be numberless because the Fool is numberless. You can't be titleless because death is titleless, whatever, if you want to go that way. Though modern takes is to name death, and, you know, and all that. Hello, Tiny Trinkets and Tarot. Ange, hello. Okay, so the last part that I think, like, makes the tarot stand out from it, because I think, again, playing cards and playing cards have this, you know, aspect, you know, oracle cards all have this. They'll have an image, a number, and a title. What tarot also has, and some oracle decks also have this too, but the tarot has one more thing, which is categories, or what we would consider nowadays the major arcana and the minor arcana. But it's, you know, just to keep it simple though, and even more complex, is categories. Did that make sense? Keep it simple but also complex. Because it's like, sure, you have the major arcana as one category, and then you have the minor arcana, you know, arcana as another category. And you have 2 subcategories in the minor arcana as well. You have the ace through tens, the number cards, and then you also have the court cards, which I think I feel are separate. I think they're so different. Like, you can't look at the ace through the tens and then look at the court cards and be like, oh yeah, they're exactly the same. They're so similar. They should be like, it's like, no, I feel like court cards should be like, I think they should be their own thing. Let's see, if numbers have value, what sort of value, hierarchy, spiritual, transcendent, etc., of progression, assuming it is a progression versus regression as we go up. Wait, what do you mean? Just thinking out loud. Yeah, I'm like, wait, because I think you're touching on something that I kind of like. I'm like, okay, yeah, hierarchy, but just be careful with that terminology. You know, because a lot of people like to be like, it's natural to have a hierarchy. It's like, maybe not. Yeah, there might be some disagreements into that. Let's see. Some Italian decks have it as Il Tredici, right? Is that how you pronounce that? The 13th, right? But which, I mean, its name is its number. You know, its name is based off of its number, yeah. But won't stick my head on it. That's an old thing, or modernization similar to TDM having it nameless. Yeah. Yeah, but let me see. But what do you mean by this? If numbers have value, What sort of value, hierarchy, spiritual, transcendent, etc. Wait, what sort of value of progression? Assuming it is a progression versus regression as we go up. Well, I mean, and this is where I'm kind of getting at here, where it's like, I mean, like, as long as you have a number, I think, you know, and you mix it up, I think you can figure out some things that might be interesting. You know, like if you make the magician number 13 instead, you know, what does that mean? And that entirely that affects the meaning of the magician. That's where I'm getting at. This all affects the meaning. Similar to when I asked earlier if one is the higher rank or the base. Oh, okay, yeah. I think it's just a cycle. To me, I think it's more a ring of numbers. You know, that's how I view the tarot. I try to view the tarot as a ring or a wheel. It goes to 21 and then back to 1 again and goes around again. You know, I think that's what it is. But I think sometimes maybe keep it to 10 and then start the wheel again. Maybe, I don't know. Let's see. Assuming numbers have assigned value, what sort of value? In Western culture, we assume as we go up from 1, it is progression. But what if it is regression? I mean, that layers onto the meaning, I guess. If you want to follow it as regression, then yeah, you can read it as such. If you want it to be as progression, then sure, read it as such. You know, or you know what I mean, if that makes sense. I tried to be like, the numbers could be a little more flexible. You know, it's not just, you know, the number being, you know, one better than the other, you know. Yeah, as in we are at a higher state of being in majors 1 through 7 and start to fall down after, so to speak. Yeah, I think I see what you're getting at. Yeah, that's just, let's see. I'm reading the chat here. Maria, you're trying to distract me. I'm just kidding. I think you mentioned you don't really like them that much. It's yeah, another live stream. But yeah, essentially, that's one take. But I think I'm trying not to put too much into. I'm just saying, like, the anatomy of a tarot card. It has a number, you know. And again, viewing how you view the regression or the progression, you know, is dependent on what card is going to get what number. So again, you know, we have him here. You know, we have the magician here, or Il Bagato, right? Bagato. If I remember what Aaron wrote. Yeah, Bagato. You know, and he's number 1. But again, it's like, it depends on like the cultural background of like this person to the people making these majors, you know. So in a different background, you know, the magician could be numbered, you know, 7, or it could be numbered 20 in other you know, cultures and other viewpoints of how this figure, this archetype, if you will, would be. But that also depends on like the image itself and the title as well. So they kind of all like interconnect in a way. They all have to kind of interconnect, you know. So yeah. Let's see. Cyclical as in how? Is there a beginning, middle, end? Well, I mean, they say, you know, and this is where we're kind of getting at, where like after 21, it goes back to the Fool. And that's the cycle that I think that we're kind of getting at. And that's why I'm kind of getting at too. You see that with the aces down to the 10s, you know, that repeats the cycle. Maybe their values in the card game as well, since they started as and that's that right there. Yes, they're like they have a value in the game that they started, and that's where the cultural, like, because again, you're not gonna put, because again, like culturally, they weren't gonna order it like the Pope, and then the Magician, and then the Fool. You know, they weren't we're going to do that, like to put the Fool above the Hierophant. That would have been like to them, and that's where they're viewing it as like a progression and a hierarchy rather than like a cycle, you know. And it depends on how you view it. Like Natalia here is saying, like a beginning, a middle, and an end. Here it's clearly like stating like, oh yeah, there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end, you know. Which I think the Fool might have been put at the far end and not at the beginning. I could be wrong. But yeah, essentially, yeah, the numbers are, you know, the order, essentially, if you will. I think we shouldn't really put so much of a value on them. I think we should just keep it as an order of things. But then this also like kind of gets in the way of the meaning, because one of the things that kind of like I'm thinking of right now is the Tower and the Star, and how the Star has, you know, currently, and I'm going to look into how to like break away from this take. The meaning of the Star for me is very reliant on the fact that it comes after the Tower. And it's like, well, that's not necessarily every time, and that's not necessarily like life doesn't always follow that strict pattern. All these things happen, but not necessarily in that order. Sometimes the Tower happens and you'll get another Tower, and or maybe you know, an Emperor figure in that way, or the Moon card after instead of the Star, you know. And if we're looking at how life progressed, like shit hits the fan with the Tower, sometimes it continues to shit the fan, you know, continues to hit the fan, you know. You know, sometimes you get the Tower and then, you know, the Lovers comes along, and, you know, and that kind of happens, but you're still like kind of reeling from the Tower in a way. And only after, you know, does the Star happen, or maybe the Star never happens for that Tower, you know. In order, because it is a system after all. And yeah, and this is where I'm like, yeah, and we gotta kind of look at like, okay, reevaluating, you know, viewing it as more an order rather than a system, if that makes sense. Because if you're putting it as a value, that again makes it like one is greater than the other. Like one person once came into a live stream and said like, what's the most important or the best tarot card to get, or whatever, or what's the most important tarot? And I'm like, well, they're all pretty equally important, you know. So yeah. Events, you see, and that's where we're getting the Fool's journey to show the sequence of events. And that's where I'm like, well, in terms of the meaning, I think we should have them not so reliant on the other, which is where I'm saying like the Star and the Tower, you know, the Tower and the Star, you know, where it's like they always say like, oh, after the Tower comes the Star, and it's like that's not necessarily the case, you know. Let's see. Let's see. That could explain why Visconti's Forza don't have numbers and titles, as they were a wedding gift to showcase, think, scenes from the Bible and church panels rather than a playing card deck. Yeah, because I think they're like so big. Like, how would you really like practically, how would you play with these? I think they're so nice, like the gold foil on them. You wouldn't even overhand shuffle them if you know, you actually had something that was gold foiled, like so probably they were more like an imagery, like collectors, just to sit there, like, you know, maybe flip through or maybe look at, you know, or they were hung up, because they do show like they have like the little holes there, so they were definitely like pinned and hung as art. So yeah, where was I? I was saying something about the order. Right. Okay. So all this is like saying, and this is why I think I'm kind of getting to like why it's the foundation of the meaning, Because again, when you have it in that order, like I said, the tower kind of affects the meaning of the star. And it's like, well, if I were to strip away that tower from the star, what does the star mean as its own, without relying on the fact that that the star comes after the tower? How do we read that star card, without having to bring up the tower at all? How does it read by itself? Because I found I'm like, okay, yeah. And what else? Also, like the Fool coming right after the World, and it's like, well, the Fool can go anywhere. It can go anywhere between there. So it's not just relegated to just, between that. Hanged Man and Death. You kind of see it like Hanged Man being like the punishment or the execution, and Death is like the death that ends that punishment and execution in a way, or Justice being like the sentencing or the court proceedings, and then the Hangman being the punishment and the sentencing itself, or the punishment, and then Death is the figure that comes and takes your life away if you're capital punishment. You're sent to the guillotine. So, how do you read those cards without, how do you form your meaning of those cards and read those cards without having to rely on them, even if they don't come up in a spread? If you shuffle the deck and you get up, the Hanged Man, you don't mention the Justice card if it's not even in the spread. It's like, I've done it a few times. Like I said, I do it all the time with the Star and the Tower. Yeah. Let's see. Don't know if it's off topic right now, but do you focus on the building or the lightning? I try to focus on both. I don't try and single out a single thing unless it's something that repeats throughout the spread. Maybe that's like with symbolic rhyming and all that. But again, this goes into the image. This goes into looking into the image. Let's see, but couldn't any of the cards go in between any card, not just the Fool? Like when we get knocked off track in life, and that's what I'm saying with the reading. That's why you're kind of getting there. Like I said, the Star doesn't always come after the Tower. It doesn't always come after like I said, sometimes it's the Hanged Man right after the Tower. Of all cards to get, or you'll get, what's another, what would be another weird card to get after the Tower, in a spread, like, or you get, oh man, what was it? Or trying to think, or the Wheel of Fortune after the Tower. That, like, those aren't really like, and that right there is where you shuffle and you get, and you spread the cards out, because again, it's like, that's where you mix up. And you mix things up, and that's where life kind of mixes things up. And I think that's why we shuffle the cards when we read. I think you answered a question that I had, the importance of shuffling and randomization in the cards. So yeah, it's like, yeah. It's not just limited to the Fool, but yeah. The Tower and then Death. Yeah, it's like, it's like extreme chaos, and to take Death literally, then yeah, Death. Chariot, that would be an interesting thing. It's like, that's kind of like, the Tower comes and then you write out, but again, you would have to learn to, like, if a deck bases its system on, makes the system so that it goes Tower then Chariot, how would that influence each other in its ordering? I think Natalia, shit, did I make sense? That's me, all the, like, me talking to myself. I guess we can say that there is no value in numbers per se, but value in sequence. However, sequence can be shifted, and hence personal value. Yeah, I think, and this is where I think we should, start, where one does their own thing with the tarot. I think so. I think you made sense. Because it's like, yes, the numbers have a value, but I mean, it's a construct. The value is like a social construct. Okay. because I think to us, like, let's say the Western Christian world views the number 6 as like a very like not good number. Like they view it as like, especially particularly 666, you know. But in the East, I'm gonna say China, but I'm sure it's not just limited to China. But you know, the number 6 is a very lucky number. But the number 4 in the East is, I'm saying East very generally, like, let's not get too distracted. Point is, number 4 is viewed as a very unlucky number because of how it sounds or how it's pronounced or something like that. But it sounds, you know, it's not a good, it's not viewed as a good number. And that's where like, but that gets into like numerology, and that's where I'm trying to like, let's not get into that too much, you know. But in a way, yeah, it's like we put that certain values, we project certain values onto these numbers, and so that influences the meanings of the card. Again, if this image and title was numbered something else, it would have it might have a similar meaning to how we know it today, but you know, it might, you know, it might have some alterations and some differences and a different perspective to it as well. Depending on how it's you know, on the number and how we view the number. You know, if this was given number 4, you know, how would it be read? You know, if it was given number 6, how would it be read? You know, things like that. So yeah, in a way it depends. You know, it's all constructs. What else? I think that's it. Right. I went into categories here. We're kind of jumping all over the place, but yeah, categories. So a major, you know, justice, strength, and the world, and all that. These 3 cards are very different. Well, no, I shouldn't say those. I shouldn't use those. I should use the ones that are different, that have the same number. Let's see, 4, and let's do 2. Let's do 2, 4, and 8. Let's see. Let's see if I can show this. I should have had this ready, but you know me. I'm always last minute with everything and always come unprepared. I should focus on one suit because again, that further adds a layer to what I'm trying to say here. Come on, where are you 4? Here we go. So in terms of numbers, we have 2, 4, and 8. I'm not sure how this is coming up on stream, on the video, but 2, 4, and 8, or 8, 4, and 2, whatever, you know, from the majors, the number there. And then you have, and I'm sure y'all know where I'm going with this. And then you have 2, 4, and 8 of one suit. You know, so it's very different from that. The numbers are viewed differently in a way, I think, you know, from one or the other. I'm holding, my hand is going to start hurting. I know, it's like, it's all over the place. Let's see, but we give way more numerical value in minor's card. And minors, it's more than about sequence. That's TDM imprint, I think. Yeah, I think, yeah, I guess so. Yeah. There isn't so much of a sequence imposed on, you know, on the ace through the 10 versus of any of the suit cards versus the ace through the 10 to the major arcana, but again, I think that might be because of the layering of the hero's journey, changing it into the fool's journey and layering that on there by Eden Gray. I think that alters the meaning of the cards themselves, and I think maybe we should look at stripping that away. If that helped you learn, I guess, but it might be a crutch, and it might be something that might be holding you back from being a little more flexible with your reading, because like, again, Exhibit A, Tower and the Star, you know. So you have the 2, you know, you have the 2 and the 4 and the 8s, you know, of the numbers. They may be the same numbers, but they're different. You know, they influence the meaning of these 6 different cards very differently. across the categories, and so categories influences that. You know, the core cards, that's its own subcategory. It's a 16 by 16, no, 16 by 16. It's a 4 by 4 group of cards, 16 cards. You know, very different from, you know, the ace through the tens and the major arcana. You know, and a lot of people struggle to read those. So yeah, that's more pop culture though, or at least it's a Catholic Church thing. The six, yeah, it's Book of Revelation. That's where they got it from. Mark of the Beast. So to me, it's not just pop culture. Pop culture takes it from the Christian Catholic and the Christian Church as well, because of its presence as the Mark of the Beast in the Book of Revelations. A lot of people read that and they go off on it. But sure, yeah. But still, point is that our modern culture views that, you know, views 666, you know, very differently to other cultures. You know, how they view that number, or how they revere a number, whether it's like auspicious or it's or not. You know. So yeah, moving on. And so those three number, image, title, no, 4 things, and category, those all, to me, I think make up kind of the starting foundations of the meaning of the cards. And the image, I think, maybe have taken like the main focus though, but I think eventually the number and even the title, yeah, image and title, that's, I think we have to look into that. Let's see. Oh, well, thank you, Annabelle. Multitasking, so can't really chat. It's all good. That's what I always do that with live streams. I always say like hi, but then I'll be listening and doing something else. Wanted to say I'm loving your talks. Always so intriguing to me to listen to. Thank you. You're welcome. Well, just doing the Lord's work, you know. The Lord's work. So, okay. So one thing I kind of brushed over, and we kind of got into it right there. We're going to get into it now. That is image and title. We kind of went off on number. Again, let's, I don't want to get too much into it, but let's focus on one thing that, you know, we kind of get, you know, we get quite a bit, you know, we kind of miss out or something, you know, or maybe we misconstrue. I don't know. There's something weird with titles and images. People like to say, you know, oh, I don't like labels. I see where they're coming from, but I think it's a good, helpful form of identification, and helping specify nuance and, you know, and exceptions to stereotypes and things that we usually tend to expect from a certain group or sphere or culture or whatever. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. You know, a lot of people like to think of it like, oh, I don't like to be put in boxes. It's like, well, you know, well, you obviously, well, it's like you can't be in one or the other. You know, it's like, you know, as who was it? It was Dear White People on Netflix. You know, if it wasn't for labels, all of Florida would have died from drinking Windex. You know, oh, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know I don't know if you want a reading or not. I'm sorry, I don't. I can't read your language. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry, but I don't know what you're asking for or what you're demanding of me, but no. I'm sorry. Let's see. I know it's from, but it doesn't have the same value that pop culture and horror films put on it. Oh yeah, no. Yeah, I think a lot of people, yeah, particularly horror films, yeah, like the upside down cross, like that's not at all what the upside down cross means. So I don't see 6 having a particularly negative meaning in tarot cards. Yeah, my Christian upbringing makes me want to lay that, but the tarot really did help me break out of like viewing 6 as a negative meaning. Very few channels make a depth chat about tarot and the tarot community on your channel through the Tarot Mafia video. That kind of content I needed in my life. Oh, thank you, Maria. Oh, let's see. Servants of the Merciful Bitter? What? Merciful. I almost read that as the Merciful Biter. That which I'm like, interesting name. Wait, what? Servants of the Merciful Bitter Time is what translates up there. Oh, okay. Well, again, I don't know. Welcome. But yeah, welcome. No, I don't know. I'm not doing readings. If they're asking for readings, I'm not doing readings. I'm just shuffling cards and talking about this. So yeah, where were we? Right. Okay. So there's should I show this? I should show this. I don't know how I'm gonna do this. I rarely do this. But let me see. I should have had this saved and ready for this. Okay, yeah, the Treachery of Images, this painting by, who is it? Who Renee Magritte. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Here, I'll send the Wikipedia so you guys know what image I'm talking about. And so this is where I'm talking, we're getting into this aspect here of the title and the image and how that affects things. I'm also going to share a wonderful YouTube video which I had to rewatch just to like brush up on like what like if I'm going anywhere with this, or if I know anything, like if I know what I'm talking about on this, which also talks about this specific painting, about labels and imagery, or titles and imagery. Let me see. Right. I'm not sure if you all watch this channel, but if you don't, I highly recommend it. It's all about this, about art and cinema and imagery. So yeah, let me see if I can find it. Where are you? No, I should go to my history, but no. But I don't want to, because I like to make life hard for myself. But here, let me actually share the channel here. Nerd Writer is the channel. So you guys can see that. If I can only find, here it is. Yeah, we're series Understanding Art. What is, what is it? And he talks essentially about that image and about the labeling. And once you label something like that, it alters the image. So sure, you might have a painting of a pipe, but once you call it, this is not a pipe, then you start to understand something else about it, and you realize that there's more to it than that. So again, we usually call the tower, but when you call it La Maison de, did I pronounce that right? I probably butchered that. But once you call it the House of God, then you change it. Then that alters the meaning of it, and that's completely different, and that layers on even more to it. That changes it from just the tower to the House of God. But if you call it the tower, that also has its own meaning. We're like, as well, let's see if I have the card here. If I can find it here. Here we go. So here we have, Le Monde. But then here we have the universe. Which, I mean, when you think of the world versus the universe, it's, it changes it, it alters it, it makes it grander in scope. I mean, what's a planet, our world, versus the universe? But then again, it also depends on how you view the word world, the world itself. If you do it, the limited world that you see, it's what context are you putting that word in? And so this is where, although people will say like, I don't like keywords on my cards, I don't like that, which I'm like, yeah, I guess so. I guess that makes sense. But if you were to do something like, this is where something interesting happens with, okay, let's say this one here. This one does, the Tarot of the Spirit does this quite well. So here, there's not a keyword. This one actually, I'm realizing this. I'm like, oh wait, yeah, they don't give them that. Heindel Tarot butchered the name for sure. So yeah, so here we have the 10 of water, the 10 of cups, and the Tarot of the Spirit. But here it's not given like happiness or satiety or joy or whatever keyword meaning that you would get to it. Instead, they call it the fountain of love. It has a title. It doesn't have a keyword. That's not a keyword for the meaning. You know, it's a title. You know, and that further adds on even more to the, you know, that's, which I'm like, I'm like, wait a minute, you know, here, 8 of Earth, it's not, the 8 of Pentacles isn't, you know, work or labor or craftsmanship, it's the mountain. But even then, I guess if you were to give the name, if you were to give names to these, you could call them things, you know, you can call these, give these titles here. So we have the 8 of Pentacles, and you can just, if you were to title this, give it a title, give it a name. The way you said joy, I don't know. I think I get that from the Beyonce album, Love and Joy, right? Does she say love and joy? No, I don't know. I don't think she says joy in that right before the song goes into, you know, Flawless. But anyways, all the disdain for oracle cards in a single pronunciation. No, not at all. Well, one of keywords, and like, it just, well, yeah, you're not, there's something to that. When you just have a random image and you give it the label of a keyword of joy, it's like, well, at that point, just have the keyword joy on a blank piece of card. It makes the image redundant, you know. Butterfly Magic with hot tea, love that account name. Hello. So if we were to call this, we would call this the craftsman, you know, or the craft or something, you know, or, you know, isn't merciful bitter a type of melon? I think, now that you mention it, might be. Wouldn't be surprised. Sounds like it would be. You know, I love this plastic Rider-Waite Smith, but let me tell you, the yellow cards, for some reason, look at this. Do you see that? What is up with this? US Games. What's the T? I don't, yeah, you can't, yeah. You see those little flecks? That's like, I think that's all like oil and dead skin cells from my hands from shuffling it. Or it's like, I gotta like rub it. It's like, ooh. But it only happens on the yellow cards for some reason. Yeah, it's not coming off, girl. But yeah, but if we were to call, what would the title be for this one? The 9 of Cups, you know? You know, or if we were to go to a different card, let's go to a different deck here. You know, here we go. 8 of Swords. We can call this the Gate. You know? Let's see. Let's find. Oh, here we go. The 4 of Cups. The shore, or the coast, or the beach, or the waves, or the shell. You know, depends on what you want to title it. You know, once you title it, though, it hyper focuses on that. But if you were to call it like the 4 of Cups, if I were to say this, this is more like the gift. No, the gift could be a good title for this. But once you call it the gift, you know, which is like the 4 of the shell is this gift that comes from the sea. It's like, you know, it's like, you know, anyways, we're not going to get into the meaning of the Marielle, but point is, well, that right there is another, that would make it a keyword. That wouldn't necessarily be well, I guess, no, kind of a keyword, more a keyword. It has to be something different. Like, I'm not calling this patience or peace or anything like that. I'm calling it something that's, you know, like that, if that makes sense. I'll have one of everything. You see, that'll actually be like, you see, and this is where it's like, this is where you can get creative with the titles of it, you know. It doesn't indicate you know, the meaning, but well, it does indicate the meaning. Well, like you know, it can, but it's like, you know what I mean? It's yeah. Hold on. So again, oh, here we go. Three of Cups, another one. Okay, so we have many things that we can call this. You know, where the Three of Cups is traditionally given joy and celebration, friendship. That wouldn't necessarily be. Those would be more keywords, albeit they could be titles. But I think like the waterfalls or the tree or the cliff or I don't know, something else, the river or something, or, you know, if we were to just label it one aspect of the card, I guess. So anything else, you know, or the, you know, the tree fed by the waterfalls or something like that. I don't know, something, or the falls of whatever, if we were to actually, you know, if these were actual waterfalls, you know, or the three waterfalls or something, you know what I mean? It varies versus Three of Cups, you know, versus joy, celebration, fun, happiness, friendship, you know, instead of a keyword, you know. But yeah, I mean, I guess you could say like the gluttonous man, I would say, maybe. You know what I mean? But gluttony itself would be to me would come off as a keyword. But and greedy would also be a keyword, but yeah. Yeah, or don't go chasing waterfalls. Yeah, that'd be another one. I saw one painting when I went to the one time I went to an art gallery, is one of those plain blank paintings, and it was called Train Tracks, and I was like, okay, yeah, we get it, you know. So do you get what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? Hello, Peekaboo Rose. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed your live stream, the 3 girls in 1 deck. Loved that. Also, love the title. So yeah, I'm getting really warm under this. I'm getting really hot and heavy under this sweater. There will be a Sex in the City without Samantha. Did you know Solomon? No, I don't know Solomon. I don't know Solomon. Come on. Get over here. Come on. Yeah. Yeah, how are you? What is it? Yeah. There you go. Oh, and that's not a joyful card anymore. I mean, yeah, it depends on what you mean. But again, you'd have to illustrate that scene of Sex in the City. The three character. What would they be called? The 3 friends? Are they friends? I don't know. I watched one season, the first season of Sex in the City. You know, but yeah, it's like, yeah, once you see the 3 of them, but you know that it's Sex in the City, and you know it has to have all 4. And that's not necessarily a good, you know, when you illustrate that in a card, you know, and you title it that. So yeah. But you get what I'm saying? You get where I'm going at? You know. So yeah, so like look at like this 10 of Cups. It's labeled success. You know, it's given the keyword of success, but really it's like what's the focus of the imagery in the background is the water crashing on this the water surrounding this rock here, crashing on it. Very similar to the 4 of Cups in the Marielle. Friends? Nah. I mean, like, no, they're more than friends. I feel like they're way more than friends, you know? Not like that, but just like they're best friends. They're like sisters, you know? You know, in a way. Well, anyways, amigas chicas forever. But the stone is what like wears and weathers, you know, the constant rushing of water and the erosion of the water, but this rock is still standing, it's still beating the waves for now. You know, but once you label it success, you're just focusing on that keyword of that, you know, success. It's like, oh, you did it. It's like, well, no, there's more to it. You know, you have the number 10, and then you have that it's the water, and then you also have the scenery in the background, you know. Oh, you meant the characters. Yeah, I mean the characters. No. Not the actors. No, I'm pretty sure they don't get along. I mean, why do you think one of them isn't coming back? I don't know. I'm hesitant to see. Well, I don't know. I'd have to watch the whole series to give my input. But yeah, but anyways. Success is very limiting for me reading a 10 of Cups. Yeah, and that's where I'm like, okay, instead of keywords, remove keywords, give it titles. Albeit, yes, can give some semblance to a keyword, but will be helpful in learning that. Like Veronica Jude, she calls this card. Where is it? Girl, where's she at? Where is Jeanne d'Arc? Did I pronounce that right? So here's a good one. Here's one where it's like, yeah, you can just call it the Page of Wands and that'll work, you know? But here, it's the bannerman of the tarot itself. It's the bannerman of the Marielle. Veronica Jude called it the Marielle card itself. I'm like, yeah. She is the bannerman of the deck, but you can also call it Joan of Arc, because that's who it is. That's essentially who's being depicted here in this card. I love this card. Such a beautiful card. Anyways, but here's the thing. And here's one thing that I kind of get at, you know, and this is where I'm like, okay, we got to learn to play with stripping away the titles and stripping away even the numbers at times. Well, kind of like knowing that there's an order, but not having the numbers plastered on there, you know, like leaving it titled. It's just leaving the image to speak for itself, because I think I've mentioned this before in the streams or when I'm doing readings, that this version of the Marielle, it's like it acts differently, it plays differently, it reads differently when you have the image with the title right there labeled on it. My brain is just like reading it differently for some reason, like it's processing it like differently, like versus, where's she at? Where'd I put her? Where is she? She's right here. Nope, that's not it. Anyway, I see her. Please don't fall back, chair. If I fall back, make sure y'all are recording it. Okay. I don't think I ever gave that meaning to set a card in any reading. Is that a common keyword for Rider-Waite-Smith? A success? Kind of. It's a general, like, success is a generally positive keyword, you know? And so I guess, you know, when you see the 10 of Cups in the Rider-Waite-Smith, it kind of goes, you know, with that right there, though. This right here, Rider-Waite-Smith dictatorship right there. Why you got to bring her in it? You know, can't the Heindel stand by itself? But generally, though, it lines up on the same spectrum of the meaning of the 10 of Cups. Where is she? Here we go, 10 of Cups. So yeah, it's like you kind of, you know, it's like you kind of lean towards that, you know, with the imagery. It's like celebration, happiness as well. But yeah, success in a way. Yeah. But success sounds very material, you know. It sounds very much like you know, more like a discs or pentacles or coins kind of card. Yeah, and this is where it's like success can, yeah, and this is where it's like, yeah, you might get a little bit caught up with the keywords, but it's like, well, it means different things to different people, you know, from, you know, what people find as like, oh, I did it, I succeeded, you know, it's like, no. But anyways, back to where I was. So titles, image, cards without imagery, no, cards without titles, you know, reads very differently. You know, where's my Page of Wands? You know, it's once you put that there, it's like, I don't know, it alters it to me. And that's where I was like, the meaning kind of hinges on that. You know, you're gonna read these two very differently. You know, where I'm kind of like, okay, maybe don't put any titles on them. Maybe, or like, know that it's called that, and know that that's where it is, and that's like where it goes in the suit. Like, this is the Page of Wands. You know, don't look at the sword and think it's the Page of Swords. No, this is the Page of Wands. You know, uh, so you know what I mean. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. Let's see. I can see that. I don't use them that often. I totally blanked when I saw that. I totally blanked. That was the scene depicted in there. Sorry. No, don't be sorry. But like I said, it's the dictatorship. Okay, so if we strip tarot away from its keywords and numbers, we are left with the image and thus subjective relationship to it. Well, but here's the thing, because you know, we just have the image. This is where I'm saying we're trying to keep it to tarot. We're trying to keep it as tarot. It's like, well, I feel like if we just had the images, then it would, without any sense of numbers or all that. Well, I mean, now we're getting into like the title and the number on the card as a part of the image, altering the image and looking at, you know what I mean? Versus like knowing that, like I said, knowing that, you know, knowing that this is the King of Wands, even though it doesn't say it on there and it doesn't have any indication of that, you know, knowing that this is the High Priestess and it is the second card in the Major Arcana, and it is, you know, it all kind of like, you know what I mean? You have to still have that there, I think, because like you said, it becomes to each its own. Well, it's like, yes, but it's like it needs those numbers and those titles, a title, I guess, because, you know, if you don't have a title, like, I feel like that kind of like, you know, it's like, well, maybe you don't need a title. No, it does. I don't know. We're getting into because again, we're really just asking questions here, really. But yeah, that's kind of the point, though. And this is where I'm kind of saying, like, step back from Rider-Waite-Smith limitations, step back from a dogma, you know, of tarot, and like saying like, this is the one and only true and best and purest and best. It's like, well, you know, well, let's look at this, you know, one of the oldest decks. Let's look at the older decks, and like, it's like, well, you're still limiting yourself and you would still be stuck into this system, you know. And it's like, if you were to change it and alter it, like I said, how about you were to change, what if you were to change the Chariot instead of the Chariot to the Warlord or the Warrior going off into battle or coming back from battle, you know, and you were to change it to a different number and do that, not necessarily strip away from it. You know, you have to look at the parts that make the whole. What is your approach to the number 2? What is your approach to the number 7? You know, what's your approach to this title? And then also the image. What is your approach to that image? You know, and making, in a sense, your own foundation separate from, you know, Rider-Waite-Smith or the Golden Dawn tradition and the Marseille and all that, if that makes sense, you know. So yeah, so I'm saying, like, in a way, you kind of need it to keep it as tarot, you know. You know, it needs, I wouldn't say keywords, because like I said, I think keywords kind of, again, it limits the meaning and it limits that. But I guess the keywords comes from the meaning. Okay, the keywords, in a sense, are the meaning, like combined, like the meaning, like let's say the meaning is like, the whole explanation of the meaning is like a few sentences or a paragraph. The keyword is the summation of that. into one word. You know, too long didn't really give me one word. You know, that's what the keywords would be. That's why I'm saying titles, not keywords, titles. You know, what else? I'm not sure what else. And then the numbers, it's like, yeah, but essentially, yes, you need it to make, you know, to keep the order, because in the end, if you don't have that order, you just have an oracle deck with, you know, no differentiation and no sense of order. Like most of the decks that I use as, or well, no, I take that back. Where is she? Where'd she go? I don't know where it is. I don't see it. Where are you? Oh, here it is, right here. Yeah, here we go. Earthbound Oracle. This is one of the few oracles that I use. So again, there's no numerical order to this. We don't know if ceremony has a different value to creativity. You know, if ceremony gives to creativity or creativity gives to ceremony, it's kind of creating some chicken egg type of things here. But you just have image and title, you know. And even then, it's not a keyword, you know, voice, you know, is that, you know, there's no negative, or voice doesn't necessarily give it a direct meaning. You know, like here we have Arcana, and it's this like fossilized shell with crystals coming out of it. Or is it a fossilized shell? I don't know. You see, and that's where like interpretation of the image goes on. But moving on, you know, message with a scroll and it's sealed. You know that. But again, there's no order to, there's no categories to it, so you really can't call this a tarot. You know, even if there were 78 cards total, this isn't 78. I think this is like 52, right? I'm not sure. 50 card. Yeah, this is 50 cards. If there were to be like 28 more cards onto this, like with more different images, different titles, of course, but no numbers and no categorization, it still wouldn't be a tarot. You know what I mean? Yeah, and this is where I'm kind of getting at. It's like, if we strip XYZ from the tarot cards, are they still tarot? It's like, well, again, this is lacking category and number, not a tarot. I think that's kind of where I'm getting at, you know. That's why at the beginning of this chat, I said to him he won't like my answer to this. Let's see. I think if we strip tarot from the fundamental meaning, it's still in the least an oracle. No, yeah, I think. Well, okay, no. So here's another thing. Oracle cards. It's like, well, an oracle isn't a cards. I'm very much in line with Annika's take on the word oracle. I think we should just be calling them reading cards or divination cards or fortune telling cards, if you will. But nothing like, you know, this is why I like the Devas of creation, where it's not called an oracle, they're called reading cards. I love that, you know. So yeah, but in a way, Devas of creation is like a pseudo tarot, if you will, because it doesn't have the 78. I think it has a few more, maybe. I think it's 80, maybe less, 72, maybe. I don't know. I saw my screen glitch there. I hope my stream isn't acting weird. But yeah, and this is where I'm saying, like, let's have more disordered tarots. This is why I'm like, yeah, Ocean Dry. Ocean Dry is the only one that's done this so far. What else? Dreams of Gaia. I'm not a big fan of it, but it does something different. It does something different with it in a way. With the majors, it changes the titles. It's very unrecognizable. The major arcana in the Dreams of Gaia is very unrecognizable to the major arcana of many of the other tarot decks. It even has more cards. But yeah. And I think this is why people say it's like, well, you have a playing card and then you have the tarot. Like, if you were to just strip away, you know, if you were to take away, you know, the major arcana from the Visconti Sforza, then you just then you would just have a playing card deck, you know, essentially, and not a tarot, you know. You know, or again, to go for the Marseille, you know, if you were to remove the majors and just have the court cards and the playing, it would just be a playing card deck. The inclusion of the majors, though, it does differentiate it, and adding that extra, you know, more, I guess, like, this is where I have to kind of find out what to label this category of the trumps / major arcana, because they're kind of like the oracle cards. Not really, no, the trump cards, you know, and all that. They're a different kind of thing compared to the playing cards, you know. I guess that's another thing too. If you can't play taroki with them, call them something else. Very much so, yeah. Because again, does that game need, you know, does it need these trump cards to play that game? I've seen some people, you know, play the rule. I'm like, wait a second. So what's the point of the majors then? You know, that you have to take out the trump cards. I switch between trump and majors. Know that I'm talking about the same thing, please. I hope y'all understand. Well, that's the thing. So again, the trump cards weren't created to be divination. They were made for playing cards. So yes, you can, you know, palm of hand, you know, you can use this as a template to read a crystal ball. You can derive things from it, a cup of water, tea leaves. That can be an oracle. But it's the trumps originally were never like intentionally created for that. Only later on did we start like creating them for that, you know, with the Rider-Waite-Smith and the Atea. No, Atea came first though. The Atea intentionally made a 78 card tarot for divination. So essentially then it thus became a tool for divination. But, you know, again, going back to its origins of keeping it to here, you know, then of course, then we layer on the divinations. We layer on top of that. The oracle is something that the oracle, remember, an oracle is a person. In reality, the definition of it is a person that is, it's a person, you know. You reading the cards, you are the oracle. The oracle cards are the cards of the oracle. I think that's what that meaning might be saying for oracle cards. The cards themselves are not the oracle. It's the person reading them. You know what I mean? Yeah, because again, the reading cards, because cards like this, oracle cards like this, are very recent development. Very recent development. Only like after, like, I can't think of it. Like even the Lenormand and the playing cards that were read for, they were originally playing cards. The Norman are 36 playing cards. Okay. I remember Annika saying it beautifully. Yeah, I think, yeah. It's in a live stream, but you know, I don't think she'd want to be dragged into this. Let's see, but that's not the point, right? I mean, even if they were not designed for divination, it doesn't mean one can't see them as such. Just maybe call it differently. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like I wouldn't call the major arcana. No, I wouldn't call the trump cards in the Marseille oracle cards. They could be. Technically, yes, they could be. Technically, yes, they can be. But in and of themselves, it's like, again, palm of my hand, I'm not going to call my palm of hand I'm not going to call a mirror, a black mirror, a scrying mirror. I'm just going to call it a black mirror. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Right? If that makes sense. I'm not going to call any of the books that I have, the Bible or anything like that, a bibliomancy book. I'm going to call it the book that it is. You know what I mean? So the major arcana in the Marseille are that same point. Again, it's when you layer it and you change the title. When you title it something else, it changes the item. So again, it's, you know what I mean? It changes it. You know, I'm getting into something there. Yeah, and thus essentially the crystal ball then becomes a murder weapon. Sounds like you're touching on divination versus self-improvement, etc. Positive psychology crap. Sorry, people, not personal. Yeah, it's, I mean, I'm self-help, I stay far away. It smells of cult, you know. I try and stay away from self-help stuff, you know. I just super, you know. So do you see where I'm getting at, you know? So again, it's like you project the oracle onto it, you know, rather than itself being an oracle. That's why I said, like, the major arcana, no, 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 no. Trump cards, not oracle cards, you know. But again, I think those were the first cards to be read by themselves as fortune telling cards, you know, right? For divination, as the oracle, the oracles could use to read and divine with. The major arcana, I think, might have been the first. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. You know, take them all out from the playing cards and just read with them by themselves. A lot of people still read that way, with just majors only, and use the play and view the playing cards, the ace through the 10 and the court cards, as just for playing cards, and don't really see much stock in like reading them as well. I hate brushing your teeth. Just like lots of people calling lots of stuff witchcraft, I brushing your teeth. I mean, this is where we start. Well, again, when with magic, at least, what? We're not going to get into it, but there is a difference between magic and witchcraft. But again, I think that would be more in line with magic, not necessarily witchcraft, from what little I've gathered, you know. And again, magic, I feel like it's just, again, I go off of Crowley's quote of what magic is. It's like, again, I can't remember. I'm sure someone will post a quote here. I need to memorize it so I can be like, oh yes, that. So yeah, so there we go. But for sure, like but again, it's like I wouldn't call brushing your teeth witchcraft. I'd call that hygiene. But I guess whatever keeps people's teeth looking clean, I guess, you know, whatever it takes. Yeah, whatever it takes. You know what I mean? I'm really hungry. I've already talked for like an hour and a half. I hope I made my point clear, right? 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 I don't know. We'll see. Because again, it's like, no. I think this will be for more further discussion and more of an example to show and different things, because it's like, I've been starting to see a few changes here and there of like in decks coming out today, like particularly with like, I think this really like started it, as well as the comment. Who was it that asked? Was it Tarot Trinkets and Tea? Ange? Was it her? Who was it that commented it was in my live stream about intuition. I saw Goody Proctor brushing her teeth in the woods. I just thought of that with the devil made me brush my teeth. But the Abstract Futures Tarot, and a comment that said like, do you read based off of intuition or meaning? And I'm like, not intuition, but not just meaning itself. I read the image, but I also read the number, but I also read like more than that, mostly the image, you know. And I'm like, well, what else? It's like, well, it's like, because again, it's like, and then I got to like thinking like, well, how do people get to the meaning? And it's like, what would, you know, what plus what plus what plus what equals the meaning, you know? And it's like, yeah, it's, you know what I mean? So I was like, yeah, I don't read meaning, because that, when I heard, do you read by meaning? It just made me think of like, I memorize a meaning for each card, and I just recite it every time I get it, you know. And it's like, you know, it's like, here we go, you know. It's like the Star, the Five of Swords, and the High Priestess. Okay. And so it's like, I'm not going to be like, well, I memorized that the High Priestess is this, and this. This Five of Swords is this, and this. And the Star is this, and this. Have a nice day. Thank you for the reading, you know. thank you for letting me read for you, whatever, you know. And that's not it, you know. Or it's like 78 degrees of wisdom, you know. I remember the Enriquez documentary where one person, this noted one person that memorized all of 78 degrees of wisdom and just recites the section of the book for whatever card comes up. And it's like impressive, but that's not reading tarot. That's just reciting 78 degrees of wisdom, you know. Please don't. Let's get back there too. What do you mean by intuition? No. We're not going to get back there. I'm just saying, like, this is where it came up. And it's like, I for sure don't read by intuition, but I for sure don't read based off of meaning itself. I produce a meaning, and that's an interpretation. I produce an interpretation of the cards based off of what I know on the imagery and what's being depicted in the cards, and applying it to the context of the question. I can give a meaning to, you know, I can create a meaning. I can create a meaning for the reading. I feel the same when asked about meanings in that context. Yeah. And this is where I'm kind of saying, it's like, well, we have to look at what's influencing this meaning, what's influencing this interpretation. And I was really, and the Tarot of Delphi got me thinking, and the Majestic Earth Tarot, really are good examples of this, where you're reading the art, you're reading the image that's going on here, what's being depicted in these paintings. You're reading that. You're not looking at, you know, the image trying to force itself into the tarot meaning that's traditionally learned from the Rider-Waite-Smith, you know. I'm pretty sure there are plenty of other paintings that look like the Four of Pentacles in the Rider-Waite-Smith, but, you know, here, you know, Narcissus, you know, focusing so much on one thing, you know, on himself, you know, and thus altering the meaning in a way, you know, and creating a new meaning. You know, again, I always go, a prime example is this card here. Where is she? Where's she at? This water, I think it's by Waterhouse, one of my favorite paintings, and because of this card and why she chose it for this card. Obviously it's going to be at the very bottom, the very back. Here we go. You know, and so here it's like, and this is where like image kind of gets locked into it. A lot of people would view this Enchantress of Cups and call her Temperance. And I've seen decks use this image and call it Temperance. And there's nothing about Temperance. There's nothing temperance about this image. You know, she is not in like a tempered mood. She has lost her temper in a way. And so this is like Temperance reversed, if anything. Or, you know, you know, you can use this as the Magician even, I feel, because what she's doing is she's poisoning the sea, you know, and in a way it is kind of like Temperance, but a lot of people will just see the vessel pouring out water into another thing, you know, and we'll think, oh yeah, that's Temperance. It's like, what? And you guys are just limiting yourself to those two cups, you know, exchanging water, or those vessels, like, you know, water coming out of a vessel. It's like, or what if someone used this as like, oh, I'm going to use this as the star, you know, because she's pouring water from one vessel into the water. But it's like, but she's not even, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? There's nothing about the star about this, you know, you know what I mean? If that makes sense. Let's see. And your answers 9 times out of 10 makes the heads of those Insta gurus exploding. They can't start a lucrative business after memorizing the low-light book of a single tech. Sorry, it's tea time. Yep, they'd call this Enchantress poisoning water. Temperance makes sense. I'm like, really? There's nothing like she's been scorned. She's pissed. She's, you know, she's like, you know what? Fine then, you know. And then she poisons the sea, and out of it comes out these monsters. So in a way, it is like Temperance, and that it's like alchemical, like, you know, blending two things to create something new and more potent and more powerful or whatever. But other than that, it's like, it's really not. you know? And so this is where I'm kind of like looking at Abstract Futures Tarot, and there's like very little indication to the original imagery of the tarot cards within it. You see the Hanged Man. It's labeled the Hanged Man. And honestly, sometimes it's kind of seems like the title is becoming a keyword. The Hanged Man. Ah, I know what the Hanged Man means. It means this, 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 and this. And Rider-Waite-Smith, and even in Thoth, it means this. And in the Marielle, it means that, or whatever. Or in traditional Marseille, it means this. But is that what the image is telling you? Is that what's really going on in this image? You know? And this is where we kind of see where some people might read Marseille or the pips only for, like, you know, the Eight of Pentacles here. You know, the Eight of Earth, if you will, or the Eight of money or something. I don't know. I don't know. You know, it's like you kind of see like, oh, those two shapes there could be the two cups. Or is it? You know, and this is where, you know, I'm not super big on abstract art or how to interpret or read into abstract art. You know, here we have the Empress. You know, like this is where I was kind of saying, like, maybe kind of get a title inspired by the name and keep the number and keep it as, and label it, make it sure it is like a major. Don't label it like, you know, 3 of the major arcana. It's like, well, I guess in a way you could, but no. But I would say, like, give it a title that is derivative of the Empress, but don't call it the Emperor. You know what I mean? I feel like this image, but again, it is the artist, you know, this is what they called it, but I'm pretty sure it's like, well, what would you call it? If you couldn't call it a tarot card, what title would you give this, you know, if it outside of the tarot, you know? You know what I mean? If that makes sense, if you see where I'm getting at here. I don't know. Let's see, that's why I don't like many new decks. Not because I'm against inclusivity, but most of the time they're just doing what sounds too scarily like blackface or queer baiting. It's the tokenism. That's really the issue there. You know, which I think this deck does a good job of like staying away from that, and even like, you know, being like, you know what, that's it, no people at all. And this is why I also kind of like the Thoth, because it doesn't rely on having to put different people in there, because again, this issue and this entanglement is also very much reliant on the Rider-Waite-Smith, you know, of like, it has to have people doing something in the minor arcana. No, it doesn't even have to have people, you know. But if there are people in it, yes, please don't just make it white and heterosexual. Like, make some mixes there. But in terms of like queering the tarot, I think that comes in with doing the reading itself. You don't just have them in that order by itself. You mix them up. If you have the King of Wands, the Lovers, and the King of Cups, that already right there. Don't matter what, you know, the cards say, like, oh, well, the King of Wands has the Queen of Wands. No, in the spread, right between these two, there's something going on. This is a homosexual relationship right here, you know? But you can't get that with, you can't get that same result with, you know, people of color or different cultures or different body types when you do reading. So that is where we need that, you know? If that makes sense, you know? Oh, absolutely. And doing that only because you want to profit on a marketable trend. Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, but that's getting into other things. I think we've done enough here. Almost talked for almost 2 hours. We're going to leave it at that, I think, because I think one thing that I usually would kind of get caught up in is correspondences. And that would be like, oh, the mythological, the astrological, the elemental, the alchemical, the Kabbalistic, correspondence is like, wait. Let's go back. Let's go further back. All right. And that's what I'm saying. Because again, those correspondences also rely on the meaning. And that meaning at times, yeah. In a way, yeah. Those correspondences kind of like rely on the meaning. Yeah. And also the ordering and the numerical order of it, Golden Dawn just kind of, kept it from one to the other, right, in a way. But once you move the Fool, though, and you reorder it and you reorganize the cards, like with Crowley did, keeping, Strength at 11 and Justice as 8. But also keeping the letters switched with that, keeping the letters as is, it's like, okay, Crowley, what are you trying to do? Why wouldn't you switch it? Why did you keep the letters the same, though? You see, and this is where we're kind of getting into things. And this is where I was, but to go back to the source, though, is image, title, numbers, and categories. And I think that is what makes a tarot in a way. Does that make sense? And there we go. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Yes. Yes. And thank you for stopping by, Natalia. There's so much to it, which is why we keep learning and growing. Absolutely. And this is where I was like, well, I'm kind of going way past. I'm like, wait a minute, let's observe the foundations. I think I'm gonna make this my theory, Oh, it's all right. It's all right, Mystic Rose. It's all good. It's okay. It's okay. You can watch it back. I'm closing it off soon because my throat is that little, that little Vicks Ricola thing got me through most of it, but I do not look forward to getting another one if I want to soothe my throat. I really don't like these. I think I just want a normal Ricola or a Ricola, But yeah. Anyways. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed. Don't forget to check out Nerd Writer's channel on art interpretation, because I think that's kind of what we're kind of doing here. When we read the imagery, we're kind of interpreting the art. So yeah, highly recommend his channel. Like, I loved it. It's like and this is why I kind of want to, if I were to take a class, if I were to go to college, I would for sure try to take a class on like interpreting art and art history, and like reading the paintings that were made there, and like what's so like interesting about them, and like what's going on in the imagery, and why, the little details that are there. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of why I kind of also like the tarot. It's like why certain things are looking at it. Anyways, but that's focusing too far into like imagery. So yeah. Phrasing what? Oh no, what did I say? Oh no, did I miss something? Did I say something? Phrasing on what? I'm scared now. Anyways, so yeah, there you go. I hope you all enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so that you know when I'm going live at the right time. Mystic Rose. I'm just kidding. It's all good. And support me on Patreon. I've been doing a few videos on there as well, talking about the decans. Did my month ahead reading. I think I'm going to do my year ahead reading as well on there. So if you guys want to support me for $1 or more, go right on there. I've honestly like done away with like the hierarchy on that thing, and I made it just like anything I upload for everyone, honestly, for whoever's on that Patreon. So yeah, there you go. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next live stream, which I don't know what that'll be, because I I'm sure a new topic will show up for me to talk about, but anyways. Bye, everyone.